Alright, so yesterday Nintendo revealed the 18th Pokemon type, which is the Fairy type, and we already have some new news about it. Some old Pokemon being retyped. We have some completely new Gen 6 Pokemon that are going to be Fairy type. We got a couple moves already. And before, I get into like the entire analysis of the Fairy type, I'm gonna show you guys this message from Junichi Masuda himself. He said he wanted to find a way to balance the strength of the Dragon type, but no one wants us to weaken a Dragon type Pokemon. So we decided to come up with something that could go against the Dragon, so that's why we came up with the Fairy type. If you ask me, it's a good idea, because, let's face it, Dragonite and the other guys have been like overpowered since before Jesus was born or something like that. And ice Pokemon aren't really that abundant, so it is kind of hard to knock out a Dragon Pokemon nowadays. So I think that the addition of the Fairy type is going to balance things out more, and overall it's going to make it a lot easier to deal with certain types of other Pokemon. Anywho, we already have two pure Fairy type Pokemon, both of them for the 6th generation. First off is Sylveon, obviously, because that's where like the whole Fairy type deal came from. And just today we have this new thing called Furabebe, which is this weird plant thing. The plant isn't part of it, but it just randomly clings onto the plant. Kinda thought it was gonna be a grass type, but whatever. Nintendo has also revealed that older Pokemon like Jigglypuff, Gardevoir, and Marill will be retyped to be part Fairy type. And because of that, I think it's pretty safe to say that Ralts, Kirlia, Azumarill, and Wigglytuff will probably get retyped to be Fairy as well. I don't know about Azurill because his type is already different than Marill and Azumarill's. Here we have the two only Fairy type moves that we know of right now, which are Moonblast, which is what Sylveon was seen using its Haxorus in the trailer, and Fairy Wind, which is the move that both Gardevoir and Furabebe can use. Both of them do damage, but Moonblast can also lower the target's special attack, kind of like Aurora Beam. Now that all the obvious stuff is out of the way, I'm going to talk about some speculation here. In the Kalos region map, you can clearly see that there is this really weird looking gym in some random town on the eastern side of the region. Both the outside and inside the gym don't really look like any kind of type besides Fairy. Sort of like Sylveon. So I think it's pretty safe to say that this is going to be the Fairy type gym for the region. I think it'll probably come fairly early in the game just to get players introduced with the new Fairy type. Also, I wouldn't be surprised that older Pokemon in the Fairy Egg group would be retyped to be Fairy type. Of the Pokemon in the Fairy Egg group, I think obviously Cleffa, Clefairy, and Clefable are definitely going to be Fairy types. I think Chansey and Blissey are also good candidates for that list. Possibly even Audino. I think Togepi and his evolutions will also be retyped, but obviously one of the types is going to have to get dropped. I predict that Flying will be dropped from Togetic and Togekiss in substitution for Fairy. I also think Snubble's gonna be a Fairy type. I mean, even though he's a dog, he can still be a Fairy because apparently, since Marill's a rabbit, he can be a Fairy, so yeah. That isn't too much of a far-fetched idea. Mawile's already had some speculation about it being a Fairy type. The same dude who said the Fairy type would be a new type also said that Mawile would be a new type. And pretty much everything this guy has said so far has turned out to be true, so I think it's a very good possibility that Mawile could indeed be a Fairy type. And I'm actually going to go out on a limb here and say that possibly Phione and Manaphy will get retyped to be part Fairy. And last but certainly not least, there is Pikachu itself. One of Pikachu's egg groups is indeed the Fairy egg group. Like I said before, it doesn't really matter that he's a mouse because Marill's been retyped and it's a rabbit. So that shows you how much Nintendo's really caring about their species. Now here's what I think. Pikachu will most likely not be retyped to be a Fairy type, because he is the mascot of Pokemon, and I don't think they're probably going to mess with something special like his type. But only time will tell. Thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next Pokemon X and Y update.